Jammin' Java friends, and here I am. I am not in my studio in Simi Valley, as you can probably see. I'm in Nashville and having a great time down here. I do have a studio here as well, and we're getting ready to have a fantastic night with Felix Cavaliere, and it's turning out to be quite a tribute to him because he is one of my heroes. He's one of my superheroes. He's on Mount Olympus for Hammond organ players in my book. So we always start with a word of prayer, and so we're going to turn it over to Pastor Chuck to lead us in prayer tonight. Take it away, Pastor Chuck.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Hope everything's going well for you. I was thinking today about the way the church is being conducted now and the things that are going on, and how I think particularly if this would have happened 15 years ago with the closures and all of that, I do not know that I would have had the opportunity or the ability even to handle the crisis like many pastors are doing, and particularly our pastor, who I think is just doing a fantastic job here at Trinity. And there are some things that I miss. They're doing a great job getting the service of the word and music and that to our people and to the world. But I miss my brothers and sisters in Christ and gathering with them. I miss the power of being in church and hearing a congregation sing with all of its heart the praise and glory of our God. I miss us praying together. And I really miss celebrating the Lord's Supper. And one of the questions I have is whether the church will change or not because of the experience that we're going through. Will we be stronger or will we be weaker? And maybe the answer lies in the fact that we'll be some of both. We'll be a little bit stronger or maybe a lot stronger, because I think the Lord is testing us and reproving us and making us a better church. But I also wonder what he has in mind and what does the future hold. And as I look to the book of Jeremiah, God says something to his people that I think is still relevant today for you and me. As he says in Jeremiah verses 11 and 12, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not evil, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you. Boy, those are some beautiful promises. God has only our good in mind. Welfare, future, and a hope, and the assurance that we can always rest in him and be assured that as we seek him, we will find him. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we just thank you for this opportunity to join together and praise you. Again, though we might be apart from one another by distance, yet we are together not only in your name and in the name of your Son, Jesus. We know that you are present among us, even though our gathering together, we might say, is electronically or digitally. We are still together and we are still one in you. Bless this time together. Bless Robbie and those that are participating with him as we celebrate your grace and your goodness. Though separate, we're still together. We ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, Robbie, back to you.
Hey, so thank you, Pastor Chuck, for that word of prayer. And today is July the 6th. 2 days ago was July the 4th, America's birthday. Happy birthday, America. We are so blessed to be living in this country. At our church service, Olivia Lyon Barker sang an amazing rendition of America the Beautiful. And I'm going to play, we're going to open up, we're going to start with that, and we'll make that as an additional prayer following Pastor Chuck. This is our prayer to our Lord to bless America. So here I am in these gorgeous Tennessee hills, and God bless America. Take it away, Olivia Lyon Barker.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. God has shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for patriot dream that sees beyond the eaves, thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. God has shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. God bless America.
Okay, now we're going to leave the hills of Tennessee for a minute and go back to my studio in Simi Valley. At least I am. Felix lives in Nashville, as a matter of fact. So Felix was in, this was a little while back, Felix was in his home studio here in Nashville, Tennessee. I was back in Simi Valley. And so this is going to be part one of my interview with my hero, my friend and my hero, the great, the amazing Felix Cavaliere.
Man,
I see ya.
I see. Can you hear me or what? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, man. Nice room you got back there. Look at that nice stuff. Yeah.
I got a lot of noise in here.
Yeah, nice. You got all your keys and everything, huh?
Yeah, this is my studio. This is where I live in here. So here, I'm a Hammond organ player, as you know.
Yes.
I love the Hammond organ, and any Hammond organ player of my generation or anywhere close to my generation that came up playing rock music or pop music or soul music, Felix Cavaliere was our hero.
Oh, nice. That's so cool.
I mean, you are Mount Olympus up there. And we all wanted to be Felix Cavaliere. You know, we would go and, let's see if I got a sound.
Yeah.
You know, we all wanted to be you.
Absolutely. That's cool.
And,
That's great.
So you inspired and you inspired and energized almost every one of us in rock, pop, and soul.
That's
So
great.
did you ever think about how influential you were as a musician?
No, I mean, like I say, you know, you have no idea. You know, when you start playing an instrument, you know, you find the magic of music, you know, and that's the end of it. It's there for hopefully the rest of your life.
And you obviously got that bug of music early in the game. How young were you when you started playing?
Well, my mom saw a little talent, so she started me at 5 years old in classical. So I went for 8 years, seriously, 3 times a week to lessons at this school of music that she wanted me to be a classical pianist. And I went through a lot of the steps on the way to that. The contests down at Carnegie Hall and stuff like that.
Wow.
And yeah, I gave it a try, and it was interesting because I found immediately that I was going to have a problem being creative. And what I mean by that, is that if I do something that's not on the written page, I got a ruler slapped on my hand.
Yeah.
Because the teacher said, listen, this gentleman here, Mr. Schubert, he wrote it like he wanted you to play it. So, I remember it vividly because I just put one hand down before the other, because I said, wow, it sounds a little echo, whatever. She says, no, that's not how we do classical music. So right away, I knew I was going to have a problem.
Yeah, wow.
And if we want to get into the Hammond organ, basically what happened,
Yeah.
I had this friend who actually was very instrumental in me kind of even listening to rock and roll. And I've told this story before, but I might as well.
Yeah.
I went to junior high. This gentleman was sitting right in front of me. I never met him, but his name was Cal. My name was Cav. So we were right in front of him. And he turned around and, he asked me a simple question. Do you like rock and roll? I had never heard rock and roll.
You're in junior high and he asked you this. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And, basically, I was pretty much restricted to listening to only classical music and being around only classical music and maybe occasional Broadway or et cetera, et cetera. All of a sudden, I said yes because I didn't want to be, not cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And I went home that night, had a little tiny little radio, I think it was a Webcore or whatever it was, and I heard Alan Freed's rock and roll.
Wow.
Now I heard people like,
Hey, Charles. Yep.
What is that? That's Ray Charles. Oh, and then I heard Fats Domino. And then I heard Jerry Lee. I said, oh God in heaven, listen to that. Are you kidding me, man? That was it. First of all, with all due respect, it's pretty easy to play that stuff if you're a classical trained guy. Simple.
Right.
Now you just got to get the feeling. And so anyway, that did it. Now I'm completely gone.
That
So
button lit the flame, huh?
I mean, and the good fortune is to grow up in New York City because Alan Freed brought it there. So I heard everything. These phenomenal singers, man, like the Penguins, the Drifters, Benny King, man. I said, wait a minute, it just blew my mind because I never heard anything like that. So then, as a couple of years went by, a friend of mine invited me, the same guy, as a matter of fact. Hey man, there's this black club up in New Rochelle, man. You want to go? I said, well, I don't know how we're going to get in, dude. We're underage.
Yeah.
He said, come on, we figure I got some proof or something. We go in and there's an organ trio. Okay, it's called the Mighty Cravers.
Wow.
Organ,
Wow.
sax, drums. Now I don't know if I was high or what, but I said, are you kidding me? Listen to this. Holy God, this guy's kicking bass. He's doing rhythm. He's playing leads and he's singing. And it sounded like a freaking orchestra. I said, oh, this is it. I don't know what that is, man, but I got to find it. So I went on this journey, which where am I going to find Hammond organ? Macy's. Okay, wow. Get on the train, go down to New York City. That's a great story. I love to tell it too. Now I was about 3 feet tall, about this big,
How old were you?
Oh God, what was I, 15?
Wow.
16.
Uh-huh.
And so I walk in and there's this guy, he was in the showroom. God, I can't remember his name, but I should remember his name. Now, when you went into the showroom in those days, it was a whole room dedicated to just Hammond organ at Macy's.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
How cool.
So the guy, I can't remember his name, but he was such a cool cat, man. He said, Yeah, go in, it's in there. Now, I walk into this room, it's all dark wood, you know.
Yeah,
I didn't even know how to turn the thing on.
sure.
You know what I'm saying? Because as you know, there's a
Yeah.
little system to that, you know. I sat down at this thing, and it was like church. You know, it was like, you know, wait a minute, this is gorgeous. Turned it on, finally got the thing going. I started playing, you know, I don't even know if they had Leslie's in the room in those days. You know, Leslie, they had a lot of trouble, as you well know,
Yeah.
in the beginning. Hammond and Leslie didn't want to be in the same room because, but they had this.
Like Mr. Leslie's thing, did he?
He did, but he ended up buying it because it sounded really bad without it.
Exactly.
It did. But anyway, that did it, you know. And then I found out it was $3,000, you know.
A lot of dough in those days.
Which is a lot of dough, you know. And you know, I had no visible means of income, but I was able. I think it was an M or an L, you know, which is like a single keyboard manual kind of a home unit and start. But that's how it started. I just you know, I just went out of my mind when I heard it, you know.
I know that you then played with our mutual friend Joey D.
Correct.
So was that one of your first big kind of a gigs?
Yeah, basically what happened is I started a group in my school in Syracuse University, studying pre-med, but I was playing piano, you know, and you know, in those days, you know, you're up against these guitar players, you know, we used to hang a mic in the back of the piano. My fingers would literally bleed, you know.
I know the feeling. I've been there many times myself.
I was working in the Catskill Mountains, and just to sum it up real quickly, I did a summer there, and Joey D came in, you know, and saw me. One of the guys, his road manager actually, and not even a month went by, and I got a call from them because now it was time to go back to school, to come to Europe because their organist quit on a tour.
Was that Bill Callanan?
It's Billy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Bill, I see him in Vegas every once in a while. You know, I think he had just gotten married or something, and so he wanted to go home. So they called me up. Now I really, at that point, you know, I wasn't kicking bass yet, you know, but the job called for it. So I went to Europe, and as fate would have it, there's this group opening up for Joey D called the Beatles.
Amazing.
That nobody had heard of in America yet.
This is history, brother.
This is history.
Yep.
So I walk in, and it was just, and I hear everybody screaming and hollering, you know, mostly female, and I immediately said, "This could be a career. This looks and sounds pretty good."
Wow. You've had a lot of light bulb moments in your life here.
I mean, it was a madhouse, you know. I mean, seriously, everybody was like, "What's going on here?" "Oh, it's the Beatles." "It's the what?" You know. So here these guys with long hair, and what you could hear, you know. And it's interesting because what I noticed is they were a singing group. I don't really look at them as an instrumental, but they didn't really sound like, you know, these guys were cutting it, you know. And especially when they would do American music, you know, it was all right. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, like, don't come to my neighborhood playing like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when they did their thing, you know, it was like a, what the, I said, man.
Yeah, man.
Cool, man. That's pretty cool because it was unique, as you well know. You know, here's this unique kind of sound that was to sweep the entire world that these guys were just doing, like, you know, that was their thing, you know. So they played, you know, those original songs, you know, and it was just great, you know. So then I decided, okay, now I'm going to be a musician.
So, you know what, we talked about Mr. Valley, my boss,
Yeah.
Frankie Valley, of course, and you go back, way back with Frankie. Any remembrances of
Oh, sure. Yeah, I got
Frankie Valley back in those days?
I remember when I first met him. I was with Joey. We were in a dressing room somewhere along the way, you know, in a club or in a venue. And I noticed a couple of things. Frankie's organization, they carried themselves a little differently. They had it together. Even in those days, you could see they got it together. it is a business, and if you're going to make a career out of it, you better get your act together. You know what I mean? It's not just a game. Well, I noticed in Frankie, it was together. You could just see that this guy's on the case. Now that has proven itself over the years, obviously.
No question. This
No
guy,
question about it.
he does not need a manager because he could manage almost any act and make a success out of them. He's got such a great mind for the business side of things, let alone his creative genius and artistic abilities, as an artist. I mean, so.
Well, I saw that because it was like, I'm looking up to this guy since the day I met him, and that's why I got to say that, I always felt very close to him because he was always so nice to me.
Interesting.
And it's kind of like, interesting that a lot of the people in those days, like Dion, and Frank, they were just nice. And you go into the business thinking, wow, people are nice. People are cool. Well, it may not be the case, but those guys were. So I've always looked up to him kind of like you would like an uncle, like a relative, because he was always looking out for me, man. He was always had a comment for me, like, make sure you cut your hair when you go on stage. You don't look so good. You know what I mean?
He's the best.
Dress up, man.
I've seen that for decades. I've seen him talk to musicians and singers. Hey, man, you got to do this. Hey, man, don't ever sit down before you go on stage. Absolutely. Because, all that kind of stuff.
And like, he just didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? But you say, like, wow, you know what? This guy really, like, first of all, he knows. Second of all, he cares. And so that was a long time ago, man. And to this day, it's like that. Because, when I did that symphony a couple of years back, I got a lovely, email from him. He said, and it was right there, man. So, it's something that I've appreciated and I've respected ever since I met him.
Yeah. I took a few minutes and reached out to a few of my Hammond brothers and asked them just what kind of influence, what kind of impact that Felix Cavaliere had on their playing, on their career, on their music. And I got some neat responses, so check some of these out.
Howard Larrabee here, Hammond brother and keyboard player for Three Dog Night. I want to send a shout out to one of my heroes, Felix Cavaliere, and just say thank you, Felix, for all the influence and the soul and the good vibes that you've brought to me and so many other people, but musicians too in particular. Anyway, thanks again. Much respect, brother. People gotta be free.
Hey Robbie, it's Tim Bonham from the Beach Boys. Thanks for the invite to Jam and Java, and happy 4th of July to all my American friends from Canada. Anyways, I got to get out to Jam and Java. I know I love the posts. I know you got some great players there. I'll get there one day. I heard that you're having Felix Cavaliere coming out, which is one of the classics of all time. One of his solos is, rock classic. It's so simple, but everybody knows that song. I have a funny story about I could share. The Beach Boys and the Rascals were doing some shows with Chris Klauser in the 90s for Northwest Airlines. And all of a sudden, Chris Klauser comes up to me and goes, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe what I bought, Timmy." I said, "What?" "I bought a Hammond B3. And I looked at him and said, "What did you buy a Hammond B3 for?" He says, "Well, Felix Cavaliere told me they're great things and they're, a great collector's item to have." Well, he ended up buying 7 of them. So I appreciate the rock influence that Felix has had on rock and roll music. And have fun, man. And guess what? The solo's coming up right now. Woo! That's it. Woo!
My friend Tim Bonham was talking about this organ solo on Good Lovin', and that's, of course, one of the iconic Hammond organ solos. Every Hammond organ player of that generation had to play that, and I played that, oh gosh, hundreds of times. back in those days. I remember seeing Felix in 1967, Felix and the Rascals, at Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis, and they just killed, and I was so inspired, so influenced by this guy. Now, there is a clip from Ed Sullivan of the Rascals doing Good Lovin' that is just off the charts cool. I'm going to play this for you. So this is Felix and the Rascals doing Good Lovin'. Now, keep this in mind. There is no bass player. There's just organ, guitar, and drums, and then Eddie playing tambourine. So they are killing it. And Felix is not only singing the lead, playing the bass, playing the chords in his left hand. This guy is just killing it. And these guys are on Ed Sullivan in front of millions and millions of people. No overdubs, it's all live. Check this out.
And the Young Rascals. Groovin was the Young Rascals' second Billboard chart topper. But the year before, they had broken through to the #1 spot with a bang and plenty of good love.
Ladies and gentlemen, here again, the Young Rascals. So let's bring them on.
Okay, we're going to go back in the early days of Felix a little bit, before the Rascals. Before the Rascals, my buddy Joey D, who's a dear friend of mine, and of course everybody knows Joey D and the Peppermint Twist. Joey D hired Felix before he was in the Rascals to play in his band. And I've got a little interview discussion tonight. We talked about Felix with my friend Joey D. In addition to that, Joey D, we're going to get Sal Bonura on the phone. Now, Sal owned a club in New Jersey. I think it was Garfield, New Jersey, called the Choo Choo Club. They hired Felix to come and play there at the Choo Choo Club. He also hired Eddie Brigatti, and he also hired Dino Danelli. And these guys were playing in different groups at the Choo Choo Club. So then, later, the Rascals, he hires the Rascals when they put that group together, and they played at the Choo Choo Club. This is before they got signed to a record deal or anything like that. And before then, they moved to Long Island and started playing at a club called the Bard. So this is going to be a fascinating discussion with Joey D and Sal Bonura about the beginnings of Felix Cavaliere and the Rascals.
Well, they got a new dance and it goes like this. Yeah, the name of the dance is the Peppermint Twist. Well, you like.
Both you guys were at the beginning of Felix, weren't you? In different respects.
Yes, Sal first. Sal hired him when it was Felix and the Escorts in his club. this little club called the Choo Choo Club in Garfield, New Jersey, where I work, and the Rascals work, and Vanilla Fudge worked. It's just amazing. Sal will tell you some of the other luminaries, famous people that were there. It's just fantastic.
I've always said there must be something in the water in New Jersey because the best of the best come from New Jersey. What's up with that, you guys?
Yeah, that's what Frank Sinatra said, too.
Absolutely.
I think one of the reasons was because we helped each other. Like when Sal had the club and all these musicians were out of work, he put food on their tables, believe it or not. And sometimes he really didn't need to have certain groups there, but he took them in because he showed compassion. And these guys never forgot Sal. They wrote books and they were in movies, and they all mentioned Sal Bonor from the Choo Choo Club, as do I.
Wow.
So anyway, I used to go to the Choo Choo Club when I was not working, and I'd go listen to all the groups. So I see on the marquee one night, Felix and the Escorts. So now I get to the front door. I don't even walk in the place, and I hear B3 going. Now already I'm liking it.
Of course.
And then I'm hearing a guy singing Hitchhike by Marvin Gaye.
Oh, man.
And I thought it was a record. And I walk in the place, and here's this blue-eyed soul dude playing the B3 and singing. And I loved R&B, so I instantly fell in love with Felix. A year later, when I worked in Stockholm, Sweden, and Beatles were the opening act, my keyboard player, Billy Callanan, that we all know, his wife was with him, and she got homesick. She wanted to go home, so he split. So what I did was I called my manager, Don Davis, to get a hold of Sal to get the number for Felix, because I never knew his phone number. I never took his phone number. And Sal gave Don Davis the phone number, and I spoke to Felix from Europe and asked him if he wanted to come out, and he said he'd love to, and he flew out within 2 days, and he was part of the show, and he just caught on instantly. He played every song perfectly. He was a great teammate, and what a talent. And he was on that tour with the Beatles.
And he told me, Felix was telling me that when he was with you, seeing the Beatles had a big impact on he thought his vision was for the future.
Well, you see how things roll around. You know, one thing's connected to the next, and the next to the next. So, they're, especially like you say, the New Jersey hookup. If you knew, I used to go watch Frankie Valli when he started with the Four Lovers, and even the group before that. And he was playing cocktail drum and singing. Tommy DeVito, of course, and Bob Gaudio was in the group, and Machoch, the bass player, Machoch. And it was just fantastic. And I used to love them.
Well, of course, Joey, we've talked about this. One of these days, if we can get you for a little while, we're going to dedicate a whole night to Joey D and your history and all this. I know you have a new book coming out, right?
Well, I just wrote, being that we're all out of work right now, so I had a lot of time to complete my memoirs. And the story is very interesting because a lot of people don't know, but I had the first integrated band in New Jersey, and we're the first band to ever have a #1 hit recording, an integrated band. And this is before the Civil Rights Movement. This is in the 50s. And a lot of places, except for Sal, I never had any problems. They wouldn't hire me because I had black guys in the band. But I said, either you hired the whole band or I don't come either. None of us come. And I'm very proud of that.
So at the time when you had Felix, then how did it come about that you also hired Gene and Eddie? Was that after Felix or before Felix?
Okay, here's what happened. When I did in '62, when I did the Peppermint Twist album, and then I did the movie 2 Tickets to Paris. In that movie was What Kind of Love Is This, a song I did.
Right.
So I had Dave Bergotti sing background, and I needed another singer. He said, "What about my brother Eddie?" Because Eddie was hanging around with us, and he came to rehearsals, and he sang. He had a nice voice. And I said, I think he's a little young, don't you, David? He says, I think he can do it. I says, all right, bring him. So the first recording he got in was What Kind of Love Is This? He sang background with his brother, along with Roger Screamin'.
Is Felix on that, you said, or not?
No, Felix was not on that.
Okay. That's Eddie and Davey then. Doing the
Yeah,
background.
and then that's when we got. That's how I got Eddie in the band. And then in '64, when I opened my nightclub, the Joey D Starlighter in New York City, I put another band together. Felix on keyboards, Eddie was a background vocalist, Gene Cornish on guitar, another Rascal. So this is a sequence of events up until '65 when they went out on their own and they created their own success, and they were fabulous. And I always loved that. All the groups that passed through Joey D and the Starlighters, I would always extend a hand to try to make them gain the success that I had. And I never felt any animosity or any remorse about it. I felt this is the proper way to do it. If these guys have talent, show it. Let them do it. They were going to be stars, let them. And look at what happened.
Amazing.
The 3 of the 4 Young Rascals, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I also put together the Ronettes as part of my group. The 3 girls, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. 1965, my guitar player, Jimi Hendrix, the world's greatest rock and roll guitar player.
Absolutely.
And 62, we had Pesci, who got an Academy Award. So, I mean, the people that came through my group, it was like a stepping stone. And I was so proud of that, just as much as if I'd made the success myself.
Sal, what I've always talked about Joey D and the Starlighters, Joey D had the first school of rock because he had all those guys coming through it, man.
Right.
Yeah, and Sal was around for the whole thing, and he knew all of those guys.
Every single one of them, and whatever Joey's saying is right 100% on the money. I could go back and just visualize it, and it's just right intact.
Okay, everybody knows the song Groovin', one of Felix's most famous songs. It's an amazing song. Felix wrote the song and he sang the song. We're going to do, out of respect to Felix, as a tribute to Felix, a version of Groovin' with my friend Andrea Hammond, my friend Rick Fierrabracci on bass, my computer percussion, and me on the Hammond organ and keyboards. And so this is for you, Felix. This is our tribute to you, our version of Groovin'.
On a Sunday afternoon, really, I couldn't get away too soon. I can't imagine anything that's better. The world is ours whenever we're together. There ain't a place I'd like to be instead. Home moving down a crowded avenue, doing anything we'd like to do. There's always lots of things that we can see. We can be anyone we'd like to be, and all those happy people we're gonna meet just grooving on a Sunday afternoon. Really, I couldn't get away too soon. No, 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 no. Oh, I really couldn't get away too soon. No, 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 Oh, grooving on a Sunday afternoon. Oh, really, I couldn't get away too soon. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no.
Okay, here's again my buddy Joey D and Sal Benora. They're going to be talking about the old days at the Club Choo Choo in Garfield, New Jersey.
What happened is a friend of mine said, Sal, there's a group playing on 49th Street, and he said, there's a band playing there. He said, you might like them. And it was Felix.
Wow.
And when I walked into the club, he was singing a Sam Cooke tune. Yeah, and Felix was singing. And when I walked in, I said, wow. Sure enough, I see Felix sitting behind the Hammond organ. I said, wow. It didn't take me probably more than 4 minutes to make up my mind. I said, I got to hire these guys.
Wow.
So I listened to the whole set, and I sat down, and I introduced myself to Felix, and I asked him if I owned a club in New Jersey. I said, would you be willing? They said, absolutely. And we made the arrangements right on the spot. I gave him a date. He came in for a two-week gig, and he knocked them dead in my place. He knocked them dead. The people just loved him.
He's been knocking them dead for about 60 years now, hasn't he?
Exactly. So I booked him right back. I mean, he was there maybe 3 times with Felix and the Escort. As often as I could use him, I did.
Wow.
And then after they got together, the Rascals.
So, yeah, because their first gig was at your club, right?
Yes, they organized they actually used to rehearse in the afternoons. You know, they either rehearse in the club and then come straight to work at night, or in Felix's basement. They had a repertoire of about maybe 25 songs. You know, they did, and every night they got better and tighter and tighter and tighter, and they increased their repertoire one at a time. Before you know it, they were just monsters. I mean, I said to myself right from the start, I said, these guys are destined. They're destined to stardom. They're unbelievable. They actually rocked the house.
Wow.
The people loved them. They loved them.
Did they do Good Lovin' back in those days?
Yes, they did Good Lovin', but when they recorded it, bang, right up the charts, right to #1. And right after that, within, I'm going to say 6 to 8 weeks, they came back to the Choo Choo after that to do a weekend gig for me. Rascals were #1. They had the #1 hit on the charts.
Wow.
And I had the #1 band in the country playing in my place. I mean, I walked around like a peacock.
I bet you did, man. How cool
did.
How cool that they came back to play for you too, because not every band would do that, you know.
Absolutely. As far as them being respectful to me, they all showed decent respect to me, and we were mutual friends. You know, so but they were destined for stardom. I mean, immediately they were just. I mean, they just were one better than the other. They just loved the crowd loved them.
Well, part of anybody's training, and I've seen this over and over in this crazy business, is when you're rubbing shoulders with successful, talented people like they were doing with Joey D. So Joey,
right.
they were getting their training wheels while they were in your group. They were rubbing shoulders with you and playing in front of big crowds. There's no college that can teach you that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Well, Joey was very, very instrumental in their success. I mean,
Hey, Joey, when Felix was with you, was he kicking bass,
yes.
or did you have a bass player?
When Felix was with me, we did not have a bass player, so he had to be playing either left-hand bass or foot bass. I don't remember.
He was doing foot pedals at he was using the foot pedals at the choo-choo for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be the same then.
Sal, for the people out there, at Sal's Choo Choo Club, he not only had the Rascals and Felix but he also had a group called the Pigeons, which later became Vanilla Fudge.
They changed their name from Pigeons to Vanilla Fudge, exactly.
And Mark Stein is going to be my guest on one of these shows coming up too.
Whenever I'm away from you, my alibi is telling people.
Felix he's in the Musicians Hall of Fame. He's in the Hammond Hall of Fame. He's in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. He's in the Grammy Hall of Fame. And of course, he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Rascals and Felix were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame by Steven Van Zandt. Steven Van Zandt, of course, everybody knows, is a member of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band. He was also one of the regular characters in The Sopranos. And so here is the introduction Steven Van Zandt gave when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This is really cool. Check it out.
And now, to induct the Young Rascals into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame,
please welcome the wonderful Steve Van Zandt.
some people may not realize it, but the Rascals were the first rock band in the world. In the 50s, you know, we had vocal groups and solo people, you know. And then in the 60s on the West Coast, you had the Beach Boys, but yeah, they really were a vocal group and they became a band later, you know. We also had the Byrds, but McGuinn really did that first record by himself, and then they became a band later. And okay, over there in England, some guys were making some noise. But in the real world, in the center of the universe, New Jersey, the Rascals were the first band. Which is why I don't understand why it took so long to get into the Hall of Fame. Some rumors have gone around that people didn't like their physical accoutrements. You know, their stage garb was a little bizarre. What I'm trying to say is people think they dress funny. Now, this is a subject I know something about. And I just, you know, for the record tonight, I want to say that there was absolutely nothing unusual about the way the Rascals dressed. Nothing strange about that. The first time I saw the Rascals was at the Keyport Rollerdrome in Keyport, New Jersey. That's right. No, there was no Fillmores. There was no arenas in those days. Rock and roll played skating rinks where it belonged. And the way rock is selling, we may be back in skating rinks next year. I don't know, but They were fantastic in those days. They were wild. Eddie would jump around. He was a wild man. He was with the tambourines and maracas, and Gene was so cool with the guitar up there. You know, he was just fantastic. And Dino, with all due respect to all my drummer friends, and most of my friends are drummers, he was the greatest rock drummer ever. Is. He also gained fame a few years later by being the last individual in the music business to go to the Beatle haircut. He kept his hair back. And of course, Felix introducing that amazing B3, that big thing, you know. It was amazing. To this day, every roadie in New Jersey has a hernia and back trouble. They hate him. The English roadies got to hate Stevie Winwood, but in New Jersey, they hated Felix. And I tell you, the greatest show I've ever seen. And, okay, it was also the first show I've ever seen, but since then, I've seen everybody. I saw the Beatles at Shea. I saw the Rolling Stones with Brian Jones, The Who with Keith Moon, Rod Stewart with Jeff Beck, Siegfried with Roy. I've seen everybody since then, and that show holds up. Fantastic. The first time I ever heard the song, I'll never forget it. I was with my girlfriend at the time. Beautiful girl. Oh, you should have seen this girl. I'll never forget her, Loretta Gorgonzola. She was so beautiful. She had everything. She had brains. She had everything. And we're there, you know, just her mother was out, and we're really starting to communicate, you know, and all of a sudden, I Ain't Gonna Eat Out My Heart Anymore comes on the radio. I just stopped. She says, what's wrong? She wasn't even there anymore. I couldn't even, it was, I don't know how else to describe it. It was the sexiest record I have ever heard in my life. The melody, the chords, Eddie's voice, the texture of Eddie with Felix and David. The guitar solo was even sexy. The organ. The record was sexier than the sex I was having with my girlfriend, let's face it. And that was when New Jersey soul was born, right there, you know? People talk about the white soul singers, you know, and there's a lot of names that come up. But Eddie and Felix, I'm telling you right now, they're the best. I mean, you know, with all due respect, the Righteous Brothers, we love the Righteous Brothers. They're fantastic, you know what I mean? And everybody talked about the Righteous Brothers. But they didn't have Eddie and Felix, though, you see, to sound that black, you had to be Italian. I Ain't Gonna Eat Out My Heart Anymore. You Better Run. Good Lovin'. Love Was a Beautiful Thing. A Girl Like You. I've Been Lonely Too Long. Come On Up. Groovin'. How Can I Be Sure? People Gotta Be Free. Ladies and gentlemen, Dino Danelli, Eddie Brigati, Felix Cavaliere, Gene Cornish, please. It is my honor to welcome to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it's about time, the Rascals.
Here they are again, one of the hottest new groups in the country today, the Young Rascals.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Young Rascals.
1, 2, 3. Well, baby, I ain't gonna eat out my heart anymore.
Well, you know that I love you, tell me what I do. Come on, baby, I tell you this too. You sure know it nearly so bad. Best woman that I ever had, now cool it.
You know I do. Now come on, feel it. You better run, baby. You better hide, baby. You better leave from my side. Yeah.
youngsters have been asking for the Young Rascals, whose Groovin has been #1 on the charts. So here they are.
Life would be ecstasy, you and me endlessly grooving. Trouble gone, yes it's gone. I'm in ecstasy with a girl like how can I be sure? I really, really, really wanna know. It's a beautiful morning. Love's the only thing I see. Can you believe I'm telling you now? Oh, the world is so easy to see. People everywhere just wanna be.
Hey, we're having fun now, huh? Isn't this beautiful? Look at this. Wow. And my studio's right here. I get to look over all of this. How's that? So now where are we in the show? We're getting back to Felix. So this is part 2 of my interview with my hero, my friend, Felix Cavaliere. You, my friend, are one of those triple threats, as they say in Broadway. You write brilliant songs. I mean, you're in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, of course. You sing your tail off.
Yeah.
You're one of the great all-time voices in the history of our business.
Cool.
And you play and you're a genius musician player. I mean, you can sing, you can play, and you can write. I mean, that's a triple threat, and you're a home run in each one of those, and not many people have that gift.
Well, yeah, as I say, when you start off listening to these people who created our musical history, that's what I heard. You know, I heard you know, like the keyboard players, like as I said, Jerry Lee Lewis and Fats, and you know, Ray Charles, of course, which is ridiculous. You know, this guy was so great.
Unbelievable.
And they sing. So I wanted to play. I wanted to sing. And then, you know, I heard Smokey's was writing his songs. So I said, well, heck, you know, maybe I can write, you know, why not? And then I heard another thing, Berry Gordy produced. I said, oh, produce. What's kind of like, okay, why not do it all? You know, so with the grace of God and a little bit of luck here and there, you know, I've been able to kind of like try those things all my life. You know what I mean? Why not? You know, you've got, see, that's the thing. I mean, you know, when you get education, whatever the subject be, it's a lot easier to do your work. You know, if you're prepared, you got the tools. You know, if you don't have the tools, you know, then you're scraping like, you know, on a slippery slope. But it was not that it was easy, but it really made a lot of, all these things made sense. You know, there was nothing in there that was like, you know, mind-bogglingly difficult. If you try, and the more you try, I guess the easier it comes. But we were very fortunate. We had a great team at Atlantic, you know, great team. So, you know, they nurtured us. They allowed us to create, you know, and I don't know that happens anymore, you know, but it used to happen because literally we had free studio time and complete control.
And a great studio, great engineer. Didn't he work with Tom Dowd a lot?
Yeah, I mean, these are like legends. These are not people. You know, these are. I mean, Tom Dowd was. You know, I mean, if you've seen his documentary, you know where he was at. I mean, come on, this is genius level 1. And Arif Mardin, rest their souls. I mean, it was like, you know, are you kidding me? I mean, these guys were just brilliant, you know. And if you didn't know it, you know, you soon found out. You know, because you'd say to Tom, like, hey, by the way, you know, that second verse, and he said, yeah, I did that a half an hour ago, you know. Oh, wow. Sorry. You know?
Those records you made, I mean, again, growing up, coming into that music, that business, I mean, in those songs, when I was a teenager, man, I was playing all those songs. And I remember seeing you guys in concert when I was a teenager, and you just blew me away, man. Of course, I was playing Hammond organ by then, and I just had to be like Felix. And so,
that was my idea. You know, when I saw those Beatles, I said, how about if we get guys that can sing and play, you know, and put them all together on one stage. So, because a lot of groups, they have one guy that everybody looks at.
Right.
Oh, that's the leader of the band. See,
Right.
but I had 4 guys who had been pretty much, you know, leaders of their own. So it was like 4 alpha dogs, which was my undoing.
Yeah, I know that can be a problem too.
4 alpha dogs, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were good, you know. And we had a deal in 6 months, literally from inception to actually, and that was interrupted by an auto accident that Eddie had. But we had a deal in 6 months with Atlantic,
One
which
of
was
the,
pretty cool.
in this show that we're going to do today here,
Yeah,
and is one of your great hits. I mean, you have so many hit records, of course.
yeah.
But Groovin.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to do that song. There's a young lady who's going to sing it, and
cool.
we're going to play it, and as a tribute to you.
Well, thank you. That's great. I gotta make sure I hear that, baby.
When I listen to that song, though, out of all your records, that what's really jumps out at me is, first of all, no drums. You got no drums on the record. You're not playing organ on that record.
Right.
Of course, you have bass. Who played?
Right.
Was that Chuck Rainey playing bass?
Absolutely. Absolutamente.
Tell me about
revelation.
that. Tell me about that session, because that's a fascinating record. It's such a small, sparse record.
Well, you know, growing up in New York City, near New York City, there's a tremendous Latin community.
Yeah.
You know, and you can help but be exposed to this music, as well as when I was up in the Catskill Mountains. Latin music was always popular up there. They had these groups called La Playa Sextet, you know, and I mean, and let me tell you, they were good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they weren't just like, you know, doing 3 chords, 4 chords. Their rhythm structure, I still, you know, cannot believe is happening in sync like that. It was amazing listening to, you know, professional Latin musicians. And that sank in. And also, as far as the actual recording of that song, yeah, it caused a lot of trouble with Atlantic because we did not have a drum. They did not want us to release that song because there was no rock and roll idiom to it. You know? And Dino played the sides for the click, 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 and he played with the sticks on the conga. But interesting part of the story, because I mean, from a musical point of view, you know, Arif was there.
Okay.
And you know, it's just like anything else. I mean, you know, when you go into a room and you got this idea and you play this idea, you know, if it's happening, you know, the room lights up. You know, I mean, that's
exactly.
You know what it's like. It's what we kind of live for. You know what I'm saying? Is that moment, you know, when that creative thought all of a sudden, you know, gets from the microphone to the tape recorder in those days. But we had this guy come in because Arif said, look, you know, it's getting a little difficult for us to hear the bass from an organ on what is becoming finer and finer acoustic levels on audio because of stereo. You know, believe it or not, that's how long ago it was. It was mono. You know, wow. There's this group around here that's got excellent musicians, King Curtis's band. You know,
yeah, of course.
People who don't know King Curtis, do yourself a favor, Google.
Amen.
This was a giant and a half. And he was a major part of Atlantic's history, the coasters and all that, all those solos, you know, Poison, all that was King, man. He would come in, man, and he was one of these guys, you say, hey, play over here, dude. And he'd play, and you go like, oh my God, did you hear? Hey, can you do it again? He says, what's the matter, man? Didn't you like it? I said, no, I just want to hear you play. You know, he was so good, man. God rest his soul. He was so talented. He had this bass player by the name of Chuck Rainey. Okay, so
bass player.
Here's this guy comes in the room. We don't know him. Now he's become one of the most important kegs of our whole life over there. So you know, I had a pattern. I was doing like this. Bass. He said, I got it. He started playing. All of a sudden we hear. I said, yeah, just like that, man. That's immediately you say like, this horse can run, man.
Wow.
you know, this guy can, this was something else, man. Because you could feel that. I mean, like he was right in the pocket, man, right in the pocket. There was no kind of like tension. It was just like magic. And you know, there's guys that play like that, you know. And
that
when you
song
limit,
was
when you,
magic. I guess Atlantic didn't have it right when they said we're not sure if it's going to sell and stuff like that. Huh?
well, what happened is a cool part of the story too. But you know, because it's cool, man. Because I remember this, you know. But that was Chuck. You know, I mean, Chuck all of a sudden became like, you know, like the third Beatle, whatever you want to call it. This guy was just, he was so good, man. He was such a gentleman from head to toe. You know, great guy. I'm sure you know Chuck. You know, I hope he's all right, man. You know?
Yeah, I ran into him a couple of years ago, and we had a great chat, too.
I mean, he's just an incredible player, man, and a gentleman. And, you know, and he fit right in with us because, you know, we loved him. But what happened is we're in this little studio called Talent Masters, which was on 42nd Street, which before it became Disneyland was a really interesting place.
Wow.
It was actually with James Brown recording.
Wow.
So we were recording in there, and it was a little box, a little studio, and Chris Huston was the engineer. So a gentleman came in the room by the name of Murray the K.
Okay, yeah.
Now, Murray the K was a very influential disc jockey in New York. And he walked in, and man, he flipped. He says, "Man, this is a great song you guys got here." Wow. So when Jerry Wexler, rest his soul, they're all gone, all these people, man. This is something else, isn't it? When Jerry Wexler said, "Well, we're not going to release that, man. We don't want to release that because there's no drum on that. You guys are a rock and roll band. Don't you know that, man? You got no organ. You got no..." Murray walked in to Jerry's office. He says, "I'll tell you what. I'll put that out on the radio tonight."
Oh, man. So he's
tonight.
Wow.
Well, you know, come on. You know, I mean, first of all, it's not easy to get on the radio then or now. That was our #1 for 6 weeks in New York.
Wow.
So anyway, Murray really helped us with that because they didn't like the idea of us, you know, jumping into a different genre.
I mean, we loved it so much that if you remember, with Frankie Valli, we recorded that song on an album called Romancing the 60s about 10-15 years ago.
I know.
And we played with the Nashville Symphony. You came to hear us.
Yes.
I don't think you knew we were going to play that song that night. We played Groovin when you were there.
Yeah, which is really cool. Yeah, that's nice. That's part of the show. Well, it's great, you know, like I say, and you know, I've always appreciated that. That's a nice treat when you're sitting there, you know, you're sitting there and looking around and nobody knows that's your song. You know what I mean?
Well, my friend, I tell you what, I don't want to take up any more of your time because I feel like I've taken so much of your time. We talked about just a few minutes, but
yeah,
it's been more than a few minutes.
Well, let me know when this airs because I'd like to hear that young lady that sings the Groovin.
I will.
And always like to speak to you, my man. We always have a good time.
Well, I want to say officially thank you for sharing some of the great Felix Cavaliere with us. So have a good one. Do you want to take us out with any kind of a song or anything?
We'll take a little bit of "It's a Beautiful Morning."
Oh yeah.
Oh, I think I'll go outside for a while and just smile. But I gotta put my mask on.
Yeah. I love it.
All right, bro.
Thank you, brother.
Man. Hey,
bye,
take care of yourself. Be safe. Love you.
Love you too, my friend. Thank you so much, Felix. Thank you, my brother.
God bless, bro. Take care of yourself.
You. Bye-bye.
See you.
One of the most poignant, one of the most profound songs in the repertoire of the Rascals was their song called "People Got to Be Free." Great, great, great song. Here's a rendition of "People Gotta Be Free," sung by our buddy Felix, of course, that comes from the Rascals on Broadway, which is a few years ago, there was a Broadway show with the Rascals, all the original 4 members on Broadway called "Once Upon a Dream." And here's a version from "Once Upon a Dream," the Rascals doing their version of "People Got to Be Free." And tell me, and this is so profound, particularly in the times that we live in today.
And then the war came home. You know, we were one of the first Italian families in our neighborhood in Pelham. I saw how my mother was treated at a very early age, and I didn't like it. It made me fight prejudice my whole life. From there, I just fell into the civil rights movement. and the Rascals were all together on this stuff. We didn't have a Civil Rights Act until 1964. The right to vote for all wasn't official until 1965. And you couldn't live where you wanted until 1968. Discrimination of any kind wasn't acceptable to the Rascals. We insisted on including as many black acts as possible as openers on any bill we headlined. And then, all our feelings came spilling out in one single song.
Got a couple more Ham Fam shout outs. We're going to start with my buddy Ricky Peterson. He's going to talk about Felix. Ricky has been playing with everybody through all the years. One of the brilliant musical minds in the Ham Fam. He's from Minnesota. And he's been playing with David Sanborn, for example, amongst many, many others for a long time. He also plays in a little band called Fleetwood Mac. You may have heard of them. Here's Ricky Peterson.
Hi everybody, Ricky Peterson here with a shout out to all the great Hammond players, especially today. Felix Cavaliere, who is one of our favorite players on the planet, with his soulfulness and the full sound that he always had, the rock and roll that he played, and especially his voice, man. His voice was one of my favorites growing up. And we all emulate you, man, and we love you. And I hope that everybody's doing good out there. Please take care of yourselves. And Felix, man, you're a bad boy. We love you. Thanks. Bye.
Hi, Scott May from Chicago's Ides of March here. And we're talking about Felix Cavaliere today. And one of the first bands that really, really drove me out of my mind, because I'm a Hammond organ player, was the Rascals. And Felix in particular, the Rascals in general, and Felix in particular. His music had a soul. The Rascals had a soul. They had something about them. They had wonderful melodies. They had wonderful lyrics, and the band was just great. But Felix, oh boy, Felix was the man, kicking pedals, making the Hammond go crazy. I also like the Vanilla Fudge, and you know, something in that Jersey water over there that was making guys who play Hammonds go crazy. And Felix, sure, boy, taught us all how to play great Hammond and soul music and rock and roll music and music in general. Years later, that Felix has become a dear friend is a blessing that I still can't get over. Felix is the man. As you see today, I'm wearing my Felix hat. Felix wears hats like this all the time, and so I decided I was going to wear my Felix hat on this little tribute. So just want to say thank you for a lifetime of great music, with more to come. You still kick ass live, and you're still great, and so I'm happy to add my name and my image and my words to this tribute to Felix Cavaliere, one of the absolute kings of the Hammond organ. Rock on.
Hey Robbie, Gary Swan here, formerly with Etta James, Pointer Sisters, and dozens of other Motown, rock and roll, country people. I've had a great career playing, and I learned from my keyboard hero, Felix Cavaliere, from the Rascals. Now, when I was growing up, he was the guy I wanted to model myself after. He had impeccable tone. He knew when to play, when not to play, how to embellish things, and how to make a singer sound great by getting out of the way. He was an expert at doing solos. He wasn't there ripping and shredding. He was playing tasty, artful pieces in the songs, and I love that, and it taught me a lot. I do quite a few recording sessions each year, and every time I do one, you can hear a little bit of Felix in it. So, Robbie, I want to thank you for letting me have the opportunity to shout out to the great Mr. Cavaliere, who, without him, I'd have probably really sucked. But as it is, I'm wonderful. Thank you both. God bless you. I love you.
Okay, here's some more now from Joey D and Sal Benura from the Club Choo Choo, Garfield, New Jersey. Take it away, my friends.
I said from day one, Felix was the backbone to the success.
Wow.
I honestly believe that. I'm not talking out of school or against Eddie. I love Eddie like my own family, believe me. But Felix did arranging. He did musical arrangements. He had the voice. He had the whole 9 yards.
He was the triple threat, wasn't he?
He had it all.
I'd like to tell you about when Felix was in the group.
Yeah, please.
When he first came over to Europe, it was the first time he played in the band with me. So we did a couple of rehearsals prior to the gig we had to do that night, and we did gigs all over Germany, and then the one with the Beatles in Stockholm, Sweden. But Felix, like Sal said, was very conservative, very laid back, was not pushy, extremely talented, very knowledgeable, a team player. It came prepared every time. When I said, this is what we're going to be doing tonight, when we did the rehearsal, he knew the songs forward and backward. He knew them better than I did after a while. I mean, he's that talented. But he never had an ego. He never had one of those situations where I'd have to pull the reins in on him and say, listen, man, be cool, chill out. Felix was a very humble guy, but extremely, extremely talented. But the combination of his ability on the organ and his vocal ability, because he sang background when I sang lead.
Right.
So he could do that just as well as sing lead. And when he sang lead, man, he took over. And I just love the sound and the grit he had to his voice. Just like Eddie Brigatti, a beautiful voice. The two of them were just such a dynamic duo that they were better than Batman and Robin, man.
I've got a question for you, Joey, because everybody knows the peppermint twist and the bop shoo-ba, bop bop shoo-ba. There's a soulful vibrato that happens. Back in the day, I used to think it was Felix and Eddie because it sounded so much like Felix and Eddie. So my question is, who was singing that background? And then I guess number 2 part of that question is, they must have developed some of their vibrato style from whoever sang that. And was that
Eddie and Eddie?
You know what? You're exactly right, and that's your musical ear. Davey started with a group called the High Fives. I had a band, Joey D and the Starlighters. I needed a vocalist because we had no vocalist, so I hired Rogers Freeman, the group called the Vibratones, and then I hired David Gotti. I took the 2 best singers in New Jersey and put them in my band. Wow. I was smart that way. Right. Now they go from the High Fives to Joey D and the Starlighters to the Rascals. In other words, there's a definite connection between that whole sound. So when you say you heard this wonderful vibrato, that was Dave Brigatti and Larry Veneri singing background in Peppermint Twist. But then on all the Rascals songs, it's the same David Brigatti singing a high falsetto, and he did most of the vocal arrangements on the backgrounds, along with his brother Eddie and Gene Cornish and, of course, Felix, the combination of them. So there's a wonderful segue between the High Fives, Joey D and the Starlighters, Rascals. I mean, it all goes together. Sal will tell you that because he knows all of them.
That sound is a magical sound. I mean,
if you listen to Felix and Eddie, they all have that same soulful vibrato.
Yes.
That came with time. That didn't happen overnight. Yeah. I mean, they each had their own sound, but they blended it together, and then the sound is just magical.
I'm going to give an official thank you. So first of all, Joey D, the great Joey D from Joey D and the Starlighters, my dear friend, man, I love you like a brother. And I can't thank you enough for sharing some of the stories about Felix Cavaliere.
Oh, you're welcome. And I just want to say thank you, Robbie. God bless you and your family, and God bless America.
Amen, amen. And to you, Sal Bonora, thanks, man. I'm so glad I got a chance to meet you, and I'm so excited to hear some of these stories. And when we talk with Mark Stein, I'm going to have to get you back on. And when we talk to Joey D, we're going to have to get you back on.
You're more than welcome to call me, Robbie, anytime. And it's my pleasure meeting you.
God bless all of you guys, and God bless America, like you said, brother. Talk to you later.
Same to you.
All right.
Okay.
Take care, Robbie.
Tell you a story may seem hard to believe in, hurt me deceiving. All of my glory made me much more aware of the problem we share. If we unite, it'll all turn out right. It's so
All right, again, in honor of our nation's birthday here, this land of the free, the home of the brave that we live in, we are so blessed, my friends. My buddy Eddie Hedges and I, this is our shout out to our country. My country, 'tis of thee.
my country, 'tis of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing, Land where my father died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountain
let it be. Woo! Happy 4th of July.
Amen. All right, here's a young lady that many of you know now because she sung with me now. She's been singing with me since she's a wee tyke, and she's still kind of a wee tyke, but she is so talented, this young lady. I have her autograph too already, so I'm all ready for her when she gets up there. Her name is Sarah Nimitz, and this is her shout out, her tribute to Felix Cavaliere doing People Got to Be Free.
We are go for guitar.
All the world over so easy to see. People everywhere just wanna be free. Listen, please, listen, that's the way it should be. Peace in the valley, people got to be free. You should see what a lovely, lovely world this would be. If everyone learns to live together. It seems to me such an easy, easy thing it should be. Why can't you and me learn to love one another? All the world over so easy to see. People everywhere just wanna be free. I can't understand, it's so simple to me. People everywhere just got to be free. If there's a man who is down and needs a helping hand, all it takes is you to understand and to pull him through. It seems to me we've got to solve it individually. Oh, and I'll do unto you what you do to me. Oh, they'll be shouting from the mountains all out to the sea. No two ways about it, people have to be free. Ask me my opinion will be it's a natural situation for men to be free. What a feeling just come over me, enough to move a mountain, make a blind man see. Everybody's dancing, we all can see. Peace in the valley, now they want to be free. Yeah. Oh, my friends, do you see that train over there? That's the train of freedom. It's about to ride any minute now. It's been long overdue. Oh, look out, it's coming on through. Yes, it is. Hey, yeah.
This has sure been a lot of fun, and it's really special to me because for my money, Felix Cavaliere is up there on Mount Rushmore. He's up there on Mount Olympus of the Hammond organ players. He's been such an inspiration to me, such an influence on me. And thank you, Felix, for everything you've done for me in this crazy music business. I hope you all enjoyed it. Next Monday, we're back at more. Who knows what we're going to do in Jam and Java next Monday. I'm planning on being back in my studio in Simi Valley, but who knows? I may be in Antarctica by then. We'll see. See you all next week.